Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Welcome to Scorebucks County's webinar Wednesday. We're excited to present um, this information to you this evening. Just a few housekeeping type details. One is that the entire webinar audio and video uh, is being recorded. And so a day or two after this is completed, I'll send you an email with a link to that recording in case you've missed something or friends or whatever, you can share it with whomever. The second item is that on your dashboard at some place, you should find a box for questions. During the presentation, if you have a question, just simply write it, type it out in the box. I will see it and collect them all. At the end of the presentation, we will answer everybody's questions, no matter how long it takes or whatever. If there's something during the presentation, you need the speaker to speak up, or you didn't hear something, again, just type it out, and we can address those right at the moment. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Scorebucks County is part of a national SCORE organization. It's an all-volunteer organization composed of retired and semi-retired former business owners and various uh, people who had positions in various companies. Our mission is simple: to educate small businesses through these sorts of activities, seminars, workshops, webinars, and then and the secondary mission is we offer free, no obligation, no cost, one-on-one mentoring sessions for those of you who may be looking to start a business or have a business and are facing some challenges. We are happy to meet with you and work with you in that capacity. Um, we are also very, very happy and appreciative of BB&T, who helps sponsor these events. And we are very fortunate tonight to have Michael Ranone, who is market president for BB&T, here to just kick things off. So, Michael.
David, thank you, and thanks to everyone who taking time out of your busy week to get onto this very topical seminar webinar. You know, SCORE is a tremendous asset to the business community, and I've had the pleasure of meeting with a number of the folks at Scorebucks County, and I can tell you that the wealth of knowledge is extremely helpful to business owners, folks who have interest in opening a business. BB&T is very happy to partner with SCORE Bucks County and be a sponsor of these events. BB&T is newer to this market. For those of you who may not know a lot about us, North Carolina-based bank who entered this Philadelphia and Greater Delaware Valley market through the acquisition of Susquehanna Bank about a year ago, and about 8 months ago, National Penn Bank. And again, our focus is on community involvement, growing the business community, and making every region throughout the Delaware Valley stronger. The topic tonight, I'm sure you're all very interested in travels throughout the business community, hiring the right people, retaining the right staff, and doing it the right way the first time is probably the top topic of conversation on almost every business meeting we have. All the technology, all the know-how in the world is no good unless you have the right people. So again, David, thank you for having this webinar. Thank you for allowing BB&T to be part of it. Thank you for allowing me to say a few words. I'll turn it over to you and Paul, and I hope everybody gets a very informative evening out of this. Thanks again for giving me a couple minutes, David.
No problem. We appreciate it. Without further ado, let me introduce our speaker tonight, Paul Weinstein. Paul has been involved in industry in various positions. He's a management consultant, and he's a certified SCORE mentor. And take it away, Paul. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you all for being with us this evening. Our goal is to get some real practical information you can take into your business starting tomorrow to improve your results. So we're going to be talking about recruiting quality employees. We're not going to get into retention on this webinar. That might be a future topic. But recruiting and hiring will take us the whole hour to talk about and, of course, answer your questions. And my intention, like I said, is that you get some real practical steps you can utilize. As Mike said, from what we've heard from a lot of our clients, finding and retaining good people is a major challenge. So just a little background on myself first. Get this to work. I spent the majority of my career in wholesale plumbing distribution. Some of you may have heard of Weinstein Supply, some locations in this area. The first 14 years I was there, our family owned the business. We grew the business to 21 locations, and in 1999 we sold it to a larger national company called Hajoca, and I worked for 16 years for that company in a very decentralized business model. In the last 10 years I was with them, I was the Northeast Region Manager, responsible for 24 locations, $125 million a year in business, and 230 employees. So I was involved with operations, sales, marketing, financials, and human resources. I'm not trained in human resources except through the School of Hard Knocks. I've interviewed and hired mostly management and management trainees, but involved with warehouse, truck drivers, salespeople, etc. So what we're going to cover in this webinar is dividing the process into 4 stages. In the first stage, the goal is to attract the right candidate. So within that section, we're going to talk about the importance, why it's so important to hire the right people, job profiles and job postings. The second stage is evaluating the candidates, so reviewing the resumes, going through the interviews, checking references, and perhaps doing some drug testing and background checks. The third stage is making the offer. Hopefully the right candidate accepts, and the fourth stage is onboarding. So let's talk a bit about why is it so important to hire the right people. Throughout my career, I've heard the same thing from managers, vendors, customers, competitors, that their biggest challenge in business is finding good people and keeping good people. One point is that planning is very important. If you know someone's going to retire, you know you're going to promote somebody. If you have somebody who's on probation, who's not working out, may not work out, start the recruiting process early, because it takes time to find the right person. One thing I heard many times, you can never hire too slowly. It's important to keep your standards throughout the recruiting process. And I've been in the situation where I've been desperate to fill a spot, and that's not the situation you want to be in, because that's when you start compromising your standards. And then you can start making mistakes, and I've made several in my career. if you hire the wrong person, it can be very expensive. You know, it's better to be shorthanded for a period of time than to hire the wrong person. Hiring the wrong person, you know, they may provide poor service to your customers, they make mistakes, lose money. It costs a lot of money to recruit and train a new employee. One side note here, I'm assuming most of you on this webinar are with us because you either have employees or you're thinking of hiring employees. But for some small businesses, the question for a particular position is whether you hire somebody, and we says here hire or rent, whether you hire or contract with an independent contractor. So an example, it might be better to use an independent contractor maybe for bookkeeping or payroll services or marketing. It's just important to be cautious if you do decide to go the route of an independent contractor, that it truly is an independent contractor, otherwise you can get in trouble with the government. Independent contractor generally provides services to more than one company, sets his or her own hours, is independent, you can't tell him when to work, works relatively independently. You give the contractor the results that you want accomplished, and he or she decides how to accomplish those results. And then, of course, you're not withholding any income or FICA taxes, and the independent contractor has to pay his or her own self-employment tax. So getting back to recruiting, assuming we're going to go ahead and start the hiring process, we have a job we need filled, and I really recommend before you start the recruiting process, even way before, is you have job profiles. Have something in writing for all the positions in your company. Now, in a lot of small companies, you have people who wear multiple hats and perform multiple tasks, so it may not be so easy, but do your best to put down in writing a profile of the job that includes the responsibilities, results you expect, any experience required, education required, the physical demands of the job, the purpose, the main tasks, the core competencies. And this is good not just for the recruiting process, but for your current employees and new hires. But the whole goal here is to really define what you're looking for before you start looking. Some of the things examples you may want to have in a job profile would be technical skills, equipment, machinery operation. Does the person require a commercial driver's license? If you have a truck over 10,000 pounds, do they need to know how to use a personal computer? There's specific software used in your business, keyboarding, any certifications, and then also think about other skills like dealing with customers, making decisions, working with others, communication, following policy and procedure, supervision. And then even an entry-level job in your company, you may want them to have some experience, that have experience being in the workforce, understanding what it means to report to a job on time and get get something accomplished. Think about the educational background you require for the position. High school diploma, is that enough? College degree, certain major, technical certification, perhaps even secondary, post-secondary education, master's, and then if they demonstrated proficiency in learning skills. Finally, it's important to be very clear about the physical demands of the job. How many pounds would someone be required to lift, or carry, or push, or pull? Is there a lot of standing required? Does the job require being outside or indoors, or even sitting for a long period of time? And then it's important to think about traits and attitudes. And you may not put these in a written job profile, or you might, but you should have in your mind, what qualities are you looking for in a candidate, like intelligence, drive, good work ethic, integrity, empathy, humility, initiative, assertiveness, ability to learn and grow. and also important that they be a fit with your company culture. And you want to think about that. What is your company culture? And maybe define that, because sometimes a great candidate may just not be a fit for your culture, for the team. It's got to be somebody who's going to work well with your existing team, or just work well with you. Also, you want to think about what are your core values in your company. And you want somebody who's going to have the similar values to what you have. All right, so we got the job profile done, and now we're going to do a job posting. And the job posting is going to be very similar to the job profile. So where do we post? Possible places are local newspaper, LinkedIn. These are all Indeed, which is online, ZipRecruiter is online, Craigslist, Monster, Career Builder. You can put it on your own website if you have a website. You can use social media, and of course you can network, tell friends, colleagues. These days, most of the postings are online. Indeed and ZipRecruiter will be free postings. So when you're writing the posting, your goal is to attract the right candidate, and you want your posting to stand out from the crowd. You can see the example here. You may not want to use that one for the expedition. In your job posting, besides the job profile, you want to include some background on your company, specific job duties, benefit information if you offer benefits or if you don't. That's important. Candidates want to know that. Skills and experience required would be in the job profile, education required, and then talk about what's the benefit to being on your team. Make it attractive. Salary range is optional. Some people advise you put a salary range. Some may depend on the position whether you want to do that or not. And then opportunities for advancement. If they exist, they have to be real. If you have opportunities for advancement within your company, you can put that in. And it's also important to have some kind of equal opportunity affirmative action language. You may want to check with an attorney, or you could probably find language online, but it's important that that be part of your job posting. All right, so you've written your job profile, you've posted the job, and then you start getting resumes coming through. And you may find yourself overwhelmed with resumes. I remember, my managers that worked under me were reluctant to post a job because they got so many resumes and they didn't want to deal with them. Once I posted a warehouse job and we got about 200 applicants. So you can get quite a few. So you have to have some way to filter through them quickly if you're getting a lot of resumes, and really look for what are the ones that are good candidates. And these days it's so easy for people to apply to jobs online. They can apply to 50 jobs at one time, and they may not even be interested about your job. They may not even read it, and they might apply. I know there's people I've called and they don't return my call. Obviously they're not interested. So we have to deal with that these days. Being online has a lot of advantages, but it also has some disadvantages. So really the key thing that when I go through, I'm reviewing a lot of resumes, is to be real clear on the skills and experience that I'm looking for, and be a stickler about that. So and just hone in on that on each resume. See, is the skill set there, the experience I asked for, the educational level, sometimes the geographic. People might apply from far away. So sometimes I use a geographic limit to kind of rule people out. So that's the first thing as you go through, is you can just eliminate quite a few if you don't have the minimum skills and experience. Then there's some positive things to look for. If someone took the time to write a cover letter that's well written, without mistakes, and they mention your company, they mention the job, it's clear they've done their research, that means they really are interested in it. They also have the skills and experience you're looking for. That's a big plus. Also, some things I look for is, do they have a stable job history, or if they've stayed in the job for a good period of time. And somewhere in the resume or the cover letter, did they mention the positive traits and attitudes you're looking for? Of course, do they meet the educational requirements, and is there some evidence of motivation? Some red flags that I may use to rule out a resume would be job hopping, moving around quite a bit, being at jobs for a short period of time, unexplained gaps between jobs, grammatical and spelling errors, started college or post-secondary education but didn't finish, and accomplishments that appear overly exaggerated based on their experience. The next step, once you've screened all your resumes, is to do some pre-screening by phone. I recommend this highly because you can just ask really a few simple questions to a candidate over the phone and identify good candidates and weed out the bad candidates and really narrow your focus. Simple questions is, why do you want to work for our company? If they're working right now, why do you want to leave where you're working now? If they're not working, what happened to your last job? What could they bring to the job? And also, I like to ask, what are your long-term career goals? And how would art position fit into your goals? Because many times people's goals are not a fit for the position, and you don't want to hire somebody who's going to leave it in 6 months because that's really not a fit for them. Let's see. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is a concept called behavioral-based interviewing. So we're getting to the interview. The interview will be the next step. But before we get to the interview itself, I want to introduce this concept. A lot of people who are not well experienced or trained in interviewing will tend to ask yes or no questions during a job interview. So if you ask somebody a question like, are you punctual? Well, yeah, sure. Are you reliable? Yeah. Are you good at customer service? Yeah, sure. So you want to stay away from yes or no questions. And the theory behind behavioral-based interviewing is that the best predictor of future behavior or performance is past behavior. So you want to think of questions that will elicit examples or stories of past behavior. That's the whole idea behind behavioral-based interviewing. So for example, give me an example of a work-related problem you faced and how you handled it. Describe an interaction with a dissatisfied customer and how you resolved it. Tell me about a time you disagreed with your boss or teacher and how it was settled. What things in your current job irritate you? What do you like best about your current job? And when we ask these kind of questions, it's important to allow some time for the candidate to think. And don't let them, sometimes candidates that go off on a tangent or give you a vague answer and not really answer the question directly. It's important to ask again and make sure they answer the question directly. So then some examples of some of these behavior-based questions, and you want the questions to be a fit in terms of your job that you're filling. So you got to think about beforehand, what are the qualities, what are the skills that are needed to perform this job at an exceptional level, and then the questions should be based around that. So let's say the job requires customer service. You want to really get an idea of, in the past, how did this candidate deal with customers? So ask the candidate for specific examples of when they provided great customer service. Also ask for examples when they provided poor customer service, didn't meet the customer's expectations, and how they dealt with that. Most likely, your candidate's going to have to work with others, at least work with you. So you could ask a question about, describe a time when you worked effectively on a team with other people. What did you do to contribute to the success of the team? You could also ask a question like, we all receive negative feedback at times. Please describe a time when you received negative feedback from a coworker or supervisor. What was the feedback? How did you react? What was the outcome? When I was doing a lot of hiring, we had a management training program where we hired people coming right out of college. And a lot of times they had really very little job experience. So when I was interviewing, I would try to look for examples of leadership, because these people would have to be managers someday and lead other people. So the kind of questions I would ask them would, give me an example of a time you led a team to successfully complete a project. Now most of these candidates, or a lot of them, would give me an example of when they had a group project in the business class in college, and nobody was stepping up, and they stepped up to lead the team. I must have heard that answer 100 times. So typically that didn't really impress me very much when somebody had that answer. So let's talk about the interview. Before you interview a candidate, it's very important to take the time to prepare before the interview. If you go into an interview without preparation, you're not likely to get the results you want out of the interview. So the first step in preparing for the interview is review the candidate's resume and break down a list of all the questions you want to ask the candidate specifically based on the resume. Look at the different jobs they've had, the experience, the work history. You may want to ask questions about, why did you leave this job? What did you like about this other job? What specific responsibilities did you have in this job, and what were the results you produced? So those are important to think about ahead of time based on the resume. And then think about the job for which you're hiring, and what are the qualities, the attitudes, the skills that you want the perfect candidate to have, and come up with some of these behavioral-based questions that will elicit whether or not the candidate has exhibited those behaviors in past experiences. And then finally, be sure you're familiar with your company's policies, procedures, and benefits, because during the interview, hopefully the candidate will ask you questions also. Be prepared to talk about your company and what's good about your company. There we go. So we'll talk about the different stages of the interview. First thing, when the candidate comes in, you want to establish a rapport with the candidate. You want the candidate to feel comfortable. Most likely, he or she's nervous. Most of us were all nervous when we were interviewing. So start with a firm handshake. And as you're going through this process, also you can take some note about how the candidate reacts. So notice how the candidate shakes your hand. Address the candidate by name. First name is usually fine. Offer them water, coffee, or tea. Tell them you're looking forward to talking with them today. Explain the purpose of the interview, the agenda, and explain that you will be taking notes. And then also, as you go through the interview, at the beginning all through it, notice if the candidate's making eye contact with you. Notice their body language. Those are all important parts of the process. So first, ask your specific questions based on the resume, based on your preparation, and then get into the questions, the behavioral-based questions about past job performance. Again, people tend to perform in the future the way they have in the past. If the candidate starts to get off topic, gives you vague answers, you stay in control, and just ask the question again about something specific. Probe for specific information. Allow for silence. Some of us are uncomfortable with silence. We want to say something, but it's okay to have silence. Let the candidate really think, take the time to think about, because they're asking about things that happened in the past, so you want specifics. And then also ask some questions about, the values type questions, integrity, honesty, work ethic. One question that I like to ask candidates is, ask them, what was the most difficult ethical challenge they've ever had and how they dealt with that. Then allow the candidate to ask questions. They may ask you about the job details, the benefits, and your company. And this is your opportunity to sell your company. The interview is a two-way street. You're interviewing the candidate's also interviewing you. Especially if this is a good candidate and somebody you think will be a good fit, You want to stand out. You want to sell the job and why they should come work for you, because they're probably interviewing with other companies at the same time. And then close the interview, thank the candidate for his interest, provide a realistic date for when you'll be in touch, and escort the candidate to the door. And right away, after the candidate leaves, review your notes, summarize your findings, make notes about your impressions, body language, eye contact, anything you may not have written down during the interview. Now, one thing you want to be careful of, there are certain questions that you should not ask during an interview because it could be interpreted as being discriminatory. So you do not want to ask age, marital status, sexual orientation. We'll talk about race, ethnicity, religion. Don't ask about plans for pregnancy. You can't ask about disability, citizenship, or a criminal record. You certainly can't ask about convictions or about arrests, but some municipalities you can't ask about convictions either, so it's better to stay away from that. So for example, don't ask how you provide child care. But you can ask, are you able to work the required hours? Or anything that could keep you from working the required hours. Don't ask, interesting name, where are you from? If the last name is Rodriguez, don't ask, do you speak English? You speak Spanish, excuse me. You can ask, do you speak any language other than English, especially if the job requires multiple languages. You can't ask about disabilities, but you can ask, are you physically able to meet the job requirements? You can't ask, are you a citizen? You can ask, do you have the required documents to work in the United States? Next step, which I strongly recommend, is checking references. If the candidate didn't provide references, you may have an application for employment that the candidate fills out, and that's another place for references. Also, either on your application or during the interview, you should get names and phone numbers of past employers, past supervisors. It's important to get both employment and personal references. Most candidates, when they supply references, they're going to be friends or co-workers that they know like them, and they're going to provide a positive reference. So it's important to get references also from past employers. And ask, if they're working for someone right now, ask if you can call that current employer. Usually not, but sometimes you can. So it's important to check the references. Some companies, when you call for reference, all they will provide is the dates of employment and position. However, I've found many times if it's a small business, it's not an issue, or if you can contact the supervisor directly, sometimes the supervisor doesn't know the company policy and may give you some answers. So you can ask some questions about past job performance. And the good question to always ask is, if you had the opportunity, would you rehire this person? And if the employer hesitates, then that's maybe an issue there. Another thing you can do is, if you have just friends, personal references, you could ask the reference for another reference. So who do you know that knows this candidate? Just a word about drug testing and background checks. Most large employers do conduct those, so you may decide, even if you're a small business, that you'd like to do that. There are companies who provide these services to employers. A couple I've dealt with in the past. One that's local is called Vertical Screen. Another one called HireRight, and they'll take care of the whole package for you. Drug test, a background check, to make sure these larger companies do have a medical review officer. That's required if they're doing drug testing. And it's good to check with the attorney to make sure any pre-screening you're doing is legal. So we've gone through the process of the job profile, the job posting, the pre-screening, the interview, the references, and you've selected a candidate. maybe you have first choice and a second choice. So the next thing you want to do is make the offer. You may make it a conditional job offer. It could be conditioned based on checking with references or verifying information or doing a background check or a drug test. If you've already done all that, then it would not be a conditional offer. Verbal offer is best, but if the candidate insists on something in writing, you can provide that. Just make sure you state in there that this is not this offer is not an employment contract, that it's employment at will, which in Pennsylvania is the law, employment at will. And then you can describe the job position offer, the work hours and location, the hourly rate or the salary, and the start date. So last thing I want to talk about is onboarding. Let's assume the candidate's accepted your offer and is starting with you soon. We'll make sure that the first day and weeks, the new employee has a great experience. It's critical that they have a great first impression. And this is really the first step in retaining good employees. So the onboarding, the first week, maybe some of this could be the first day, could include some history of the company, background on what market segments you serve. If you have a mission statement or a vision statement, share that, what your company values are, the goals and priorities of the business, both short-term and long-term, how the employee, this role fits in with achieving those goals and your long-term vision, performance expectations. If you can have the employee shadow other members of the team initially, that'd be great. You could personally introduce the employee to to key customers, key vendors, key business partners. And then also it's important to have a detailed training and development plan. There's a lot the new person's going to have to learn about how you do things, your policies, your procedures, maybe software is involved, and that's all got to be laid out so the new employee is comfortable that they're going to get the training they need to do the job well. And then another good idea is to pair the new employee with a buddy. So that completes my presentation. We have any questions, Dave? If you have any questions, as Dave said, you can type them in the chat box.
There's a couple questions. Before we start tackling those, I just wanted to echo a few things that Paul pointed out. One is the absolute importance of behavioral interviewing. Asking about their prior experience with examples is critical. I can remember in my younger days, I would just ask, are you organized? They'll say, well, yes. Oh, good. Are you honest? Of course. And I didn't know any better. But once you start asking them to give you examples of their accomplishments, what goals have you set? How have you met them? What goals have you set and what prevented you from meeting them? Give me an example of a time when you had a disagreement with your boss. How did you resolve that? Those kinds of questions really give you much more information about the person. So anyway, there were some questions, and there's one that I would address, and that's from Beth, who says that I find that a candidate will tell you what they think you want to hear. How do you know if they're telling the truth? My biggest frustration is hiring a person who says all the right things, but when they are hired and they start to work, they are not capable of doing the job. And I think all of us who have interviewed and hired people, I primarily hired salespeople over my career, and I probably hired well over 100 salespeople and sales managers, which means I interviewed maybe 300 or 400 different candidates over that career, and I did make mistakes. And as Paul pointed out, one mistake is when you're desperate and you start to lower, you say, well, I think I can work with this person and improve them. It doesn't happen. The other mistake is there are people who do a great job of interviewing, and they have great eye contact, and they smile and they're enthusiastic and they say all the right things, and you think, wow, this person's perfect, and then you hire them and they're less than perfect. I'm sorry, Beth, I don't have a clear-cut answer to that, but what I have found that, again, if you keep probing those kinds of people for specific examples of accomplishment, and it doesn't matter if they're an executive or a laborer. If they've worked before, they've had situations they've had to deal with, and they can't, you can tell it. They can't make those up. They will lose their credibility, and you'll see right through them. But it's a very difficult thing, and I feel for you. The second part of your question was, apparently you have a not breeding, but dog kennel, dog daycare center, and you were asking about a working interview. I would think that's a great idea in that situation. If you have a candidate that you think fits your criteria, I don't see anything wrong with saying, listen, this involves working with and getting along with dogs and animals. I'd like you to come out and spend a couple hours in the kennels with the dogs and seeing how you relate to them. I think that's perfectly appropriate, and if they don't want to do it, then that tells you something as well. So I hope that answers that question for you as best I can, Beth. Lamar, and this, Paul, you can address this one. Lamar Johns asked, as a new small commercial cleaning company, what's my best route for hiring? Should I use a temp agency at first? Paul, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, temp agencies, that's one route you can use. The advantages of a temp agency is they'll do all the pre-screening for you, the background testing, the drug test. I would recommend then you don't have to go through all the withholding. If somebody doesn't work out right away, you can just say, send me somebody else. But you're giving up some control. On the other hand, typically they want to just send you one person typically, but I recommend strongly, if you use a temp agency, tell them send 3 candidates and interview 3 candidates, because you never know, if they just send you one person, what you're going to get. But it is a way to kind of, if you don't want to go through the process yourself, you don't have time. You're running a business. You're doing a lot of things. It's difficult to find the time to go through this whole process. So that is an option, and sometimes it works out well. In our business, we sometimes would use temp agencies for truck drivers, and sometimes we got some great truck drivers and ended up hiring the person. But it's there's some risks to it, again, because you don't have the control. Again, if you're going to do that route, ask for at least 3 candidates that you're going to interview yourself before you make a choice.
Good, thank you. Gary has asked, Gary, I unmuted you, so if you're on audio, you can talk, because I'm a little confused by your question. It says, can I ask if the candidate has children? No mic. Can I ask if the candidate has children? The answer to that is no. I can't think of a situation where that would be an appropriate question. If you're worried about daycare for them, or you have hours that you expect the employee to be able to work, and there's nothing wrong. You can certainly ask, is there anything that prevents you from working, from being here at 8:30 in the morning and working till 4? That's perfectly okay. Um, but asking them if they have children, that's pretty dicey. How long have they been with their significant other? No, that no, all those kinds of questions are no good. You see, okay, trying to get a feel for their family situation and their loyalty. Um, I understand the motivation, but it's way too personal, and it could be certainly discriminatory. Don't forget, we live in a very litigious age, so you don't want to give anybody any fodder to come back if they don't get the job, and they'll say, well, this person didn't hire me because I have 2 kids, and we're not married, but we live together. No, stay away from that. You can get their loyalty, I think, through the resume. How long have they been on the job? Uh, if they're job hoppers, and then you have to question their loyalty in that respect. All right, and then I think there is one more. Maybe not. Oh yes, this one from Travis. Um, and I'll take a shot at this then, Paul, if you have some comments, please, because this is a tough one. He says, hi, thank you, etc. He owns a small landscaping company with only a couple of employees at one time. I have extreme difficulties trying to find one reliable, motivated guy in 8 years. This past season, I went through 30 different employees. How do I find good, reliable laborers in a day when no young people want to work hard, and if they do, they are usually on drugs? Yikes. I'm not sure I can even fathom an answer for that. I feel for you, because it doesn't seem like, um, you know, years ago, people, I don't know. I mean, I guess you get old, you get philosophical or cynical, but it seems like, many years ago, people needed and wanted to work, and it didn't matter if it was cutting grass or what the job was. Now, I don't know. I don't know where we are as a society, and boy, oh boy, Paul, do you have any thoughts?
Uh, yeah, well, one thought is that if you've had that kind of experience with drug use, to institute a drug testing before you hire somebody. There are local, you can talk, local providers right in town who can provide that service. And yeah, if you're hiring laborers, you might find more of that. So that's one thing you can do. And then I guess my question to you is, what's your process now? Where are you looking for candidates? Maybe you're fishing in the wrong pond, so to speak. So you may want to think about, where are you looking? What's your process? Uh, Perhaps there are other pools. Maybe it's college students that want to work part time. They work through college. Somebody like with more of a work ethic, a goal. There may be you got to look at that. That's all I can think of.
Yeah, I think you face the same problem that a lot of small businesses face. I mean, the fast food industry. Oh boy, I wish I had a better answer. Where I wish we could help you more directly. But we did get a contributory answer from a Mr. Geltz. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name right. It says another way to test loyalty is to ask the candidate about their current and former employers. Candidates who disparage their employers will do the same to you. Excellent point. You know, if they talk bad about their bosses, that's a loyalty issue, and you can bet they will talk bad about you as well. So I think unless anybody else has a question, let me just scan. Again, I want to thank you for your participation and attention, and thank you, Paul, for an excellent presentation. I will send out an email, as I said, with the recording. It takes a day or so for it to process and produce the recording. And again, if you need, feel free to contact SCORE. If you would like to discuss anything about your business with a mentor, we have many mentors from many different fields with the experiences that'll be more than happy to sit down and work with you. And again, it's there's no charge for any of that. And watch your email. We'll have another webinar in 2 weeks. Thanks for attending, and we'll say good night. Over and out.